another thing that comes up in the book is also the notion of explainability. And this is something that it's really going to be more relevant depending on what is your business model and ultimately what is your product doing. Like an example of it might be, okay, if you're using a deep learning model, let's say, and your product is trying to find cancer rates or cancer cells, right? And it's doing a really good job because it's a deep learning model, and it's performing well. In that situation, if it works, it works. And if it's not hurting anybody, if it's helping people, then this idea of a black box isn't quite so prohibitive.
Hello, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Engatica interview series. I'm your host, Kimberly, and we are super excited to have all of you join us today. We have with us a very special guest and a lot of questions to talk about too. We have Irene Bratsis, the Director and Digital Product at Data at IWBI. A very warm welcome to you, Irene.
Thank you so much for having me, Kimberly. I'm so excited to be here.
This is super exciting. We have a lot of questions for you, and hopefully, we're going to have an amazing conversation. But before that, let me tell you what the series is all about. The Engatica interview series is a powerhouse of insights from industry experts and influencers from around the world, a platform that provides the latest news on AI, automation, and technology that will help you grow your business. So, come be a part of our community where we learn, share, and grow together. Diving into my first question to you and Irene is, you've recently launched the book, The AI Product Manager's Handbook. Could you tell us how did you actually come across this book and what could the audience really expect out of this?
Yeah, thank you. The book was launched recently on March 9th, and this really came about because I've been writing for a long time about topics ranging from data science to eventually to product, where I started as a data scientist and then got into a product role where I focus on data products. So basically, this publishing company, Pact, found my articles, and I was a career transitioner, so I had started in more commercial roles, account management kind of roles that were client facing, and had upskilled into data science and machine learning. So it was, very much a testament to the times that we're in, when you can write all these articles and kind of express yourself, and you never know who's going to find it and who's going to ask you to write a book about topics that you're writing about. So it all came about very serendipitously, and I'm very glad it did, because it was quite the journey.
Awesome. That is super excited. We'll make sure we link the book in the description so the audience knows where to go and find that. My next question to you.
Actually, let me also answer that the book is really written in three sections. So the first section is really about defining, what do these terms mean? What do we mean by machine learning? What do we mean by AI? What do we mean by product management, right? So it's really a definition of terms in the first section. In the second section, we talk about AI native products and how they kind of come to be and what you need to know as you're building AI natively in your products. And then the third section of the book is about how to evolve products that already exist. So taking a traditional software product and adding AI features to it. And what does that process look like? So it's really for people that are either product managers or technologists or leaders, and they're just approaching AI, or vice versa, right? Maybe they're coming from a technical role and they're interested in product management. So it's for all those folks.
Yes, thank you so much, Irene. All the best to you for the book. Diving into my next question to you, and this gets the conversation rolling, is what key challenges do you face as a data product manager, and how do you actually address them?
Yeah, for where I am now, and for most of my roles, the biggest challenges are really data engineering and data quality challenges, because what you're doing with your data is only as good as how usable it is, which is another thing that I talk about a lot in the book. So, for us, the challenges are, do we have the data pipelines we need to make sure we can use, have things like embedded analytics and, a data-driven like kind of UX for our customers. I support digital product. So And I don't work in a traditionally, tech company anymore. So it's really about how do we mature this organization so that we can do the fun stuff we want to do with this abundance of data that we have. So in many cases, having access to data might be a challenge for a lot of companies, but for us, particularly where I am now, it's really about making that data usable and actually having the infrastructure to support it all.
That is really, really interesting. How do you ensure that the data platform you manage meets the needs of different cohorts of customers, including those participating in the Well at Scale program and those seeking the individual certifications and ratings?
Yeah, so we aim to have different experiences for different groups of stakeholders that interact with our product, especially because Well at Scale is a subscription service for us. So it's actually being seen by a lot of different groups within a company, right? Certain deliverables might be more relevant to people in the buildings department, or people, in their marketing department, or in their ESG reporting departments. So it's for us, it's more about how do we build an experience through our Well Online platform that will speak to all these different groups that are now interacting with our subscription service. It used to be that we just had single asset or we just had ratings, and we'd go through the process, and once you're done, you're kind of done. But with Well at Scale, it's kind of this ongoing experience that they're having with our brand over time. And that kind of changes, like all of the branding collateral that we send out to different groups. Like one project that we just finished was our end of year report, which ties in our standard to things like the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or GRESB, or GRI, or other, other frameworks that exist out there. And it's really, we're in the wellness industry, right? So it's about how do we actually communicate the value of working with us on an ongoing basis. So it's more about the storytelling, and it's more about, those deliverables that we actually send them to different groups for every company we engage with.
That is definitely a very fresh perspective and something new that you brought to the table. Are there some of the, what do you see as some of the key trends in the field of data science and analytics, and how do you actually stay up to date with them?
Yeah, being able to discover and sort of explain how certain trends are happening within one client company is certainly, a trend that we see. So this hyper personalization, this ability to give our customers, access to their data so that they can discover it and they can explore it themselves. Those are really the biggest things that we're thinking about right now, because for instance, we recently chose a new BI tool, and we want to sort of offer this ability for them, because it's not just, okay, here's a dashboard, here's what we think is important to you, and maybe once a quarter we update that. We don't necessarily want it to be that way. We want there to be a continuous stream of insights that we're getting from customers, and we're seeing a real need from customers that want to be able to explore things in that way, because everybody has a BI team, nowadays, right? Everyone can, onboard a BI tool and do their own kind of digging, and find their own trends. So it's really about democratizing and empowering our customers with their own information, right?
Yes, that is super interesting. And the next question was really brought up by the community a lot of times is, how do you actually balance the need for innovation with the need to ensure data privacy and security are kept in place?
Yeah, one thing that we talk a lot about is, taking the collective data set that we have on all our customers, right? Because, there's a lot there to explore, particularly when it comes to things like, how quickly are achievements being recognized, or how quickly are they able to, like I said, derive value from our product ultimately.
Right.
So, in that sense, we do have to balance, you know, uh, obviously every customer's data is going to be private, and we want to do benchmarking, for instance, and we want to compare certain accounts to how they're doing with others, in comparison to others in their peer group. And their peer group could be anything from a different industry, or maybe they're similar companies altogether within the same industry. So yeah, it's kind of this push-pull of like, okay, we have this like massive data set, but we don't want necessarily to like give too much away when it comes to benchmarking, but we also see a huge demand for it too. And I think this is something that all companies have to deal with. That's another thing that I write a lot about in the book, is kind of the notion of ethics, right? And when you're building, it's not quite so straightforward that, okay, we're building and we're going to build ethically, or we're going to hire someone that's going to be like our ethics officer, right? It's like something that everyone is taking a part in, and kind of this notion that like we are data stewards, and even within teams, having good governance and good data practices, even within a company, is something that we, as the makers of this experience and makers of AI products, ultimately have to constantly weigh. And it's not just someone's job to make sure we're doing that, right? It's all of our jobs to make sure that we're thinking about these things at all phases, me as the product manager, or as the director of product, and others, as leaders, or even as users.
Correct. Yes. Thank you so much, Irene, for this amazing conversation. We really learned a lot from you. Before we conclude, are there any other sound bites that you'd like to leave with our audience?
Yeah, another thing that comes up in the book is also the notion of explainability. And this is something that it's really going to be more relevant depending on what is your business model, and ultimately what is your product doing. Like an example of it might be, okay, if you're using a deep learning model, let's say, and your product is trying to find cancer rates or cancer cells, right? And it's doing a really good job because it's a deep learning model, and it's performing well. In that situation, if it works, it works. And if it's not hurting anybody, if it's helping people, then this idea of a black box isn't quite so prohibitive. But let's say if you're a B2B company and you're using an AI product, let's say, that's optimizing for the price of something, or giving a scaled price to certain customers, right? But you have no way of knowing if that distribution of pricing is unfair, let's say. In that situation, explainability becomes a hurdle, because you're not able to tell a company that's buying your product and using it downstream, hey, this is why it's making certain determinations. So even the notion of explainability is not something that is uniform across products. You can use a deep learning model, if explainability isn't a huge deal, and if it is, you're going to run into issues because it's a black box and you can't explain it. So that's something that comes up a lot in the book. The other thing that comes up a lot in the book is, the idea of commercialization. So you're often going to have a different way of building out your product department based on if your product already exists, or if you're coming to market with a new product, obviously, but then also if it's serving certain kinds of customers. One thing we talk about a lot with AI products is you're essentially productizing a service, because every model is going to work optimally for certain data sets. So what I found, in my experience, is that, we might have one model that we use for one customer and a totally different model that we use for another customer based on their behavior and their own benchmarks. So, with AI products, like, everything is relative, and you're trying to do it as responsibly, but also as cost effectively as you can, because this trial and error can get expensive.
Yes. Thank you so much, Irene. This was a fun conversation. We really learned a lot. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and hopping with us on the show today.
Thank you so much, Kimberly. Have a great night.
Awesome. So we will be linking your book in the description. And if
Mhm.
in case there is more content that you'd like to share with us, feel free to do that. We'll make sure we keep your profile up to date so our audience knows where to find if they have anything. You can reach out to Irene directly on LinkedIn. We will put all the links in the description so you don't have to worry about that. For more content, you subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon so you get access to exclusive content coming from thought leaders from around the world. We'll see you in the new episode soon. Stay tuned. Bye.